Good evening, everyone. This formal meeting of the Board of Education for August 12, 2014 is called to order. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. Any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. This meeting is being televised and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times, and this meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV Services website. Director Curler and Student Representative Jay Oswald are absent this evening. And before we get started, I'd also like to take an opportunity to introduce everyone to our new board manager, Roseanne Powell, who is sitting right up here. Roseanne, after a year, the board is very happy to have her with us. It took us about a year to find her, and we are really excited to have her joining us on staff. Okay, at this time we will go ahead and do public comment. Ms. Houston, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do. We have 4. Our first 2 speakers, Donna Cohen and Adam Robbins.
Okay, while you guys are coming forward, I'll go ahead and read the instructions about public comment. Thank you very much for taking the time to come to our board meeting. We deeply value public input, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board lies in actively listening and reflecting on the thoughts and opinions of others. Guidelines for public input emphasize respect and consideration when referring to board members, staff, and other presenters. The board will not respond to any comments or questions at this time, but board or staff will follow up on various issues that are raised. Please be sure that you've left your contact information, either phone number or email, with Ms. Houston. Pursuant to Board Policy 1.70.012, speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. Any complaints about specific employees should be directed to the superintendent's office and will not be heard in this forum. You have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments. Please begin by stating your name and spelling your last name for the record. During the first 2 minutes, you'll see a green light on that box ahead of you. When you have 1 minute left, a yellow light will come on, and when your time is up, a buzzer will sound, and you'll see the red light, and we respectfully ask that you wrap up your comments at that time. We sincerely appreciate your input, and we thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you. I'm Donna Cohen, C-O-H-E-N. I have 3 points. First, before you go to bed tonight, spend a couple of minutes thinking about this. You told us that Roosevelt is going to now have 2 fully equipped STEM spaces. It's kind of like adding 1 + 1 = 1, because we've been saying that neither of those spaces is large enough for a fully equipped STEM workspace, which is why they need to be adjacent. If you think otherwise, you need to show us that. You need to create a diagram, a schematic, something that indicates not necessarily, you don't have to put the equipment in any specific location, but all of the stuff that's going to have to be in there, just get it in the room and show us that it works. It seems like you expect the community to just take things at your word, and I prefer to work from an evidence-based place, so please do that. Second point, PPS desperately needs help with STEM. That's pretty obvious at this point, especially the tech engineering part, the TE of STEM. You should hire tech engineering educator who is experienced and has leadership qualities as soon as possible. If no one is available in Oregon, do a national search. You might go through the existing teacher ed programs in other states in the country and talk to the heads of the programs, get a recommendation for a student they've had who's now out working and has these qualities, and then have that person oversee the tech engineering component of STEM for the district. You can also contact the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association, which is, I sent you information about their conference. And finally, many people in Portland Public Schools misunderstand the core tenet of STEM, which is to design something that solves a problem, build a prototype, test, and redesign if necessary. This is the engineering design process. Many people confuse science experiments with the engineering design process. In fact, this is such a significant issue that the Next Generation Science Standards have addressed this, and they say Although engineering design is similar to scientific inquiry, there are significant differences. For example, scientific inquiry involves the formulation of a question that can be answered through investigation, while engineering design involves the formulation of a problem that can be solved through design. So every STEM project should be evaluated on the basis of whether it follows the engineering design process, with inquiries into such things as design iterations, science principles involved, math principles involved, tools and equipment used, was the problem solved, and is there a logbook showing the progress and the development of your project. This type of evaluation is something that this person can help you figure out. So.
My name is Adam Robbins, last name R-O-B-I-N-S. I'm here today to address the bond measure funded remodel of Roosevelt High School. I find the remodeling project thrilling both as a future Roosevelt High School parent, as a resident of North Portland, as a practicing design professional, and as a treasurer of the board of the St. John's Neighborhood Association. But I do have a concern about the STEM space as designed. STEM education spaces succeed where all the tools, resources, and instructors are combined in the same area, where the most interactions between instructors, professionals, and students can happen across the broadest spectrum of expertise and ideas. In Roosevelt's current plan, these areas have been split into two separate areas in opposite wings of the building, which can only result in a less effective STEM space. The current STEM space design appears incidental, as if an afterthought, and is not the best use of the available square footage. The PPS representatives that came to the SJNA general meeting in July assured us that the structure is flexible enough that the STEM spaces can eventually be combined. But as a design professional, I know it is much more efficient to take care of this plan change now, before the program is in place, before the students have their workshop set up. And I also know that the functionality of spaces should take precedence over packing square footage into a box. In September, my two daughters begin 6th grade at George Middle School, one of Roosevelt's feeder schools. My daughter Lucy is heavily interested in STEM subjects, identifying herself as a scientist as early as age 4. She has been involved in FIRST LEGO robotics competitions and constantly pursues activities in science and engineering. I am counting on PPS to create an integrated STEM education facility, and so is my daughter. Having a divided and dysfunctional STEM education area right out of the gate in 2017 as she starts at Roosevelt will detract from her education. And telling her that it's okay because the space can be reimagined later and combined later, I don't feel is good enough. She will be there the first day of school, fall 2017, and the STEM education space needs to be built correctly the first time. It is unacceptable to let this project proceed with a flawed design. I ask, now is the time to avoid making a mistake that has been brewing for months, but a mistake that, if uncorrected, will have effects for years, if not decades to come. Now is the time for action. We, the Roosevelt High School community, are not asking for something extra. We are asking that the space be built correctly the first time. Roosevelt is rising. Please do not push it back down. Thank you.
Next, we have Mike Rosen and Jane Greenhalgh.
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. Jane Greenhalgh, Green, H-A-L-G-H. I'm here to discuss the corrective action plan and to urge PPS to live up to its commitment to offer a full day of high school to every student. To genuinely offer a full day, PPS needs to provide high school principals with more teachers now, as we're not close to providing a full day to the majority of high school students. Looking at the preliminary forecasting data, there's some great news. 97% of freshmen at Roosevelt will get a full day, 94% at Madison, 81% at Jefferson. But at Cleveland, only 43% will get a full day, and at Lincoln, 17%. That's 17% of freshmen. Let's talk about Lincoln for a moment. That's my son's school. If you do some simple math and divide the FTE you've provided to Lincoln with the number of students and then divide by 8 classes, you'll discover you're not funding enough FTE to give Lincoln students even 7 classes, not even 7. Foundation money is now being used simply to get us to part-time school. It's not just a problem at Lincoln. Comprehensive high schools across the city need more staffing. Fewer than half of Wilson students are forecast for a full day. Only 34% of Cleveland students. Grant and Franklin are right at 50. Lincoln is at 19. Over the past few years, PPS has created a culture of part-time high school by restricting most students to 7 classes. The parent complaint was filed last year when you tried to cap students to 6 classes. You've sent a consistent message to students that part-time school is just fine for most high schoolers. As educators, you need to lead and show students that high school should be a full-time commitment. PPS needs to provide principals with enough teachers to offer enough sections of classes so students can take a full day. Parents are counting on educators in the district to counsel students about what is really needed to graduate and be ready for college or a career. PPS's milestones are clear: to graduate on time, to meet college-ready benchmarks. Another of your stated goals is by 10th grade, students should have passed core subjects with strong grades of B or better. You also set the benchmark to earn 9 college credits. Using these standards, almost all of our students need access to a full day of instruction because most PPS students aren't meeting these standards. They need support classes, career-related learning, study hall with instruction, college prep classes like IB and AP. So it's crucial that high school principals be given the teachers they need now to provide every student with a full day of school. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to everybody for your comments, and again, please feel free to connect with the board manager or with Ms. Hewson, who can make sure she has your contact information. So at this time, we'll go ahead and have the superintendent's report. Superintendent Smith?
Yes, and I think we have some photos to go along with this up on the screen. Yeah. So my superintendent report is really a tribute to the staff and parents and families who have been part of keeping our students engaged during the summer and preparing our buildings and our programs for the school year and for the future. So people have been very busy this summer. Our principals and secretaries are back in school this week. Teachers will soon follow. We have Project Community Care on August 23rd, and I'm hoping a lot of people are planning to join us to help work on the grounds and buildings to welcome our students back. Students are back for the first day of school on September 2nd, and kindergartners start on September 5th. So this is our summer bond construction, and as you know, the 2014 summer bond construction work is going really well. All 12 summers, the buildings that we're being focused on this summer are on time and on budget. So the work has included roof repairs, seismic strengthening, improvements to build accessibility, and science classrooms. I got to visit 3 of them today. It was very exciting and really amazing what's being pulled together in a very, very tight time frame this summer. One example, elevator projects are underway in 3 schools. They'll give students, staff, and parents access to areas of the building that have not been easy to reach. The work is made possible, as you all know, from the $482 million school improvement bond that our voters passed in 2012. So we're really excited about how this is shaping up, and we will be ready for kids on September 2nd. So summer interns, and you're going to hear more about this as part of the bond update, but we have taken internships to a new level this summer. We welcomed, oriented, trained, and deployed 25 interns, the largest district-level cadre of paid interns in memory. The program's called Building Futures. District staff has gotten to know the interns by their red ID badges, and I think we have some interns with us here this evening. The students are wearing intern t-shirts during the day, and they've been great at the work that they're doing. So they've been answering district phone lines, tabling at community events, photographing construction at the summer bond work sites, and you'll hear more about them tonight during the Office of School Modernization report. But welcome and thank you to our interns who chose PPS as the place they were working. Some of these students are continuing PPS students, and some actually graduated last year, and this was their first out-of-school job after graduating. So we are really excited about this. Clarendon Early Learning Center is getting ready to open in September. This program is housed at the old Clarendon School Building in North Portland. The center will bring together several Head Start and culturally specific preschool programs. It will also have parent resources for children and families from 15 months to 5 years old. And the center will support learning for our community's youngest students and then assist them and their families in the transition to kindergarten. We hope Clarendon will be the first of several such centers across the district over time. And at this moment, we want to thank Our partners, Albina Early Head Start, Oregon Community Foundation, Indian Education, Neighborhood House, and the PPS Teen Parent Program. So we're really excited about this, opening this in September. Lions in the Park. We had this summer James John Elementary teachers organized a reading program that they called Lions in the Park, which is named for the James John mascot. They wanted to help their students beat the summer slide, so they came to PPS and Portland Park summer lunch events to read with their students. The program has been a roaring success. Teachers from other schools also began stopping by to read to students, and we want to thank all those teachers for making early literacy a priority all year long. And thank you to Portland Parks and Rec for being such a great partner with us this summer in feeding families. And actually, these photos, we had all of our principals pose with little messages to students so that they could send home personalized messages to students about reading over the summer. So we really had infused a lot of what are the messages going home were all about reading. Rosa Parks, students and teachers started their year-round schedule in July, and this is the start of a 2-year pilot program that Rosa Parks is testing out for the district. We know that year-round schedules have shown to improve academic outcomes for students in other districts around the country, and for PPS, we're looking to Rosa Parks to see what kind of outcomes they get doing their year-round school. So, and actually I visited Rosa Parks earlier this week, or at end of last week, and it was totally exciting. Everybody's back and engaged. Benson had summer scholars again this summer. We had a 6-week summer program that wrapped up on August 8th with 2,400 students participating over the course of 2 3-week sessions. 2,400 students. Summer scholars hosted high school students from over 25 Portland metro area schools and programs. It's a high school credit recovery and credit advancement program for students who want to recover credit, improve a grade, or get ahead by earning original credit. Approximately 23 students will have completed their graduation requirements during Summer Scholars and will receive their 2014 diploma from their respective high school this month. In addition, we had 35 students who completed their essential skill requirement in reading, writing, or math this summer. And in partnership with Portland Parks and Recreation, we served nearly 6,700 meals, breakfast and lunch, during the 6-week summer program. And I want to thank the many staff and partners who helped to make this a success. This is a big deal for a lot of our students. So, and as part of when they have something to finish up, this allows the opportunity to do that. Now, Harriet Adair is not with us here in the audience, which I was hoping that she would be, but Harriet, who is the Assistant Superintendent for School Operations and Support, recently received the President's Award from the Confederation of Oregon School Administrators, and she was on leave when the award was given to her at the COSA convention at the Coast this summer, so we were hoping to do it here tonight so that she would get recognition. And it was presented by the COSA president and Vernon Elementary School principal Tina Acker, who served as president of COSA this year. Harriet began her career with PPS in 1970 as a middle school teacher and moved into the principal ranks and then to the district level. And she has led such key initiatives as pre-K-8 implementation, supervised principals in nearly every cluster of schools, and developed special expertise in early learning. So she is the person who's really championing the Clarendon Earlier Learning Hub. She's also taught education at Portland State and has been a mentor and inspiration to hundreds of teachers, particularly teachers of color in the district, as well as a mentor to many of the leaders in the district. Congratulations to Harriet, and thank you for your ongoing commitment to PPS. And she does. She's just a part of and loves this district. So. So I'm also happy to announce the 2014 Portland Public Schools Garden Cookbook. You may know that our district has more than 60 school gardens. Those gardens are used to teach core curriculum, including math, science, writing, and art. Our gardens are also a safe place where students can be outside and focus on the natural environment. Nancy Bond, who is our resource conservation coordinator with the district's facilities department, along with our AmeriCorps environmental projects coordinator, Angela Oliverio, created this cookbook by compiling recipes, stories, and photographs from each of the district's gardens. They also got art from students who worked in the gardens. And these cookbooks have been published to raise money for the school gardens. So far, more than 1,000 of the cookbooks have been sold at $5 a piece, raising almost $5,000 for next year's garden program. So, well, you know, you were supposed to be provided one tonight, but we will be finding those for you and getting them to you. They're really cool. They're very beautiful cookbook. We will get you. We will be getting. You know, that's a great question. I think they're available online. But Tony, do you know how these are available to the public? How can one get one? I will find out. Okay, we will post this on the board page in the if people are interested in getting a cookbook. Yeah. Another summer program, Fabian Fast Track Summer Pilot Program. We had 50 kindergartners and first graders getting an introduction to school this summer during a pilot program called Fabian Fast Track, which helped prepare students for academic success. Here you have a shot of kids being prepared. Students received breakfast and lunch along with math, reading, and writing instruction. And there was also an artist in residence hour. Artists provided visual arts and dance instruction, including having a garage band play for the students. So this is funded through All Hands Raised Equity Grant, Concordia University, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods, or the SUN program, and PPS English as a Second Language and Early Childhood Education departments. So it's really exciting, the different programs that schools have run this summer in order to keep kids connected to school and not to lose ground during the summer. And to introduce, we had our early kindergarten transition programs happening in a number of schools again this year. And then finally, as part of our third grade reading campaign, we've had athletes and authors doing events across the district, both last year and then again this summer. So one of the authors that came and read at Rosa Parks was Renee Watson, who was a Jefferson graduate and nationally recognized children's book author. She came to Rosa Parks last week to inspire students and assist with our third grade reading campaign. We had a gathering of more than 200 children with their families who came and she read one of her books. It was a really wonderful event, really great inspiration for young readers and young writers. But we are going to play for you a clip that KATU showed about this event.
K2's Valerie Hurst live in the newsroom with this. Val, who is this and what is she doing? What's the mission here?
Her name is Renee Watson. She graduated from Jefferson High School, now lives in New York City where she is a children's book author. She's also a performer. She's back home right now kicking off a partnership she has with Portland Public Schools and some nonprofits in town like the Multnomah County Library. Now she has advice for both kids and parents when it comes to improving reading skills. Last night, she was reading some of her own work to kids at Rosa Parks School, and she talked about where her skills have taken her. Experts say reading at grade level by third grade sets a kid up for success, a better chance at graduating and starting a career. But a big number, nearly 70% of kids don't meet that mark. Renee says parents have to be involved.
Not just giving a child a book, but reading with the child, and parents really owning that responsibility of sitting down with a young person and reading with them, discussing the story.
Now, she also suggests that we be role models as parents by doing our own reading in front of the kids so they see that as adults we still need to have good reading skills. And by the way, just last month, Oregon's chief education officer told the Oregonian that her priorities for the year included improving reading instruction for kids who are approaching third grade. We're live in the newsroom. Valerie Hurst, K2 News.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you have the parents invested in reading with their kids, right? They know how important that is. It's reaching out to all the other parents maybe who don't realize the level of importance of that.
Important.
So, for sure. All right, Val, thank you.
Nice coverage. Actually, it's been great having the reading events at schools where they've drawn large numbers of families and our partners, and they feel very festive. Pizza offered, but really great energy, and the kids ask great questions, both of the athletes and the authors, and it's been wonderful to have Portland Public School authors, people who have become authors, come back and read to our kids. So this was a wonderful event. And that's it. Good stuff going on in our schools this summer. And ready to start the year.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to our next agenda item, which would be the Bond Accountability Committee Quarterly Report. The board appreciates the opportunity to hear the report this evening from the Bond Accountability Committee. I'd like to ask or invite Chairman, there he is, Kevin Spellman, to present the report tonight. And
thank you, Chair Knowles, Board, Superintendent Smith. With me today is one of our committee members, Steve Marsh, who in his day job is auditor for Multnomah County. And I'd like to say that we on the committee really appreciate the skills that he brings and the skepticism that he brings to this process. It's really valuable. That's why we're there. So appreciate it, Steve. The BAC met July 16, and before we talk about any of the reporting, I want to restate, as I do each quarter, the appreciation we have for the staff, OSM staff, who continue to be totally open and transparent. And if we're not satisfied that it's transparent enough, they go back and they make it more transparent. And their patience, at least, is appreciated. And it's really been a joy to work with them. We heard a lot about what's been happening the last quarter. It's been a very productive quarter, and certainly the last month has been productive. Superintendent Smith gave you an update on IP14, so I won't go over that, other than to say I don't want to jinx that work because there's still a little time to go, but it's really impressive. The work that's been done, not only in this very tight time frame, but going way back to the beginning, programming, designing, bidding, and putting the work in place. This is not, I said this last summer, this is not a trivial exercise, and it kind of seems like it is because it's gone so smoothly. The real key, I think, to that success, and we heard about this from staff, is the commitment to the lessons learned cycle. This year, they used some of the lessons learned related to invoicing and change order management, and I think that that's been reflected. For IP15, they've used lessons learned from this year, which was that design should have started maybe a little earlier. IP15 will start earlier. And there have been a couple of hiccups this year in terms of the OSIP that delayed the notice to proceed. That can be taken care of next year. So again, no one's resting on their laurels. They're learning the lessons and improving things going forward. We heard about the status of Fabian, and I won't dwell on that either, other than to say that we are really interested in how this is going to play out, since the word unique is overused, but this is unique. So we're interested to see how this is going to work. We also committed to having the staff report to us on the performance audit recommendations, which they did, and their work on that has gone well. And actually, Bill Hirsch from the performance auditors attended the meeting, and I think that's a valuable exercise. The real current issues, just briefly, there were some new procedures involved in this summer's work that will also be involved in the forthcoming work. I mentioned the OSIP. There's a learning curve there. Certainly, that will improve. And there's also the workforce and hiring program, and we talked about that before, but these are the first contracts where that's been put in place. It's a program that is familiar to contractors, so We applaud the district for not reinventing the wheel there, but instead working with the city to use a program that's been in place for some years. Student involvement, I know Jim is going to talk about that later, and so we won't dwell on that other than to applaud the direction here. And also to just say that we're still working on how to measure that. If you recall, the initial metrics really didn't work, and we haven't solved that problem. But clearly progress has been made on the ground, as it were, but we've got to figure out how to measure this. Budget, staff continues to provide great transparency in budgeting, which is really not very easy with the complexity of this measure. The primary thing that's happened in the last quarter was the allocation of the escalation reserves out to the projects, and we spent a lot of time in the meeting talking about that, and committee members were fearful that since the budgets had increased, as they would, that designers then would design to the increased budget, and staff made it clear that that is not the mechanism. That's not the way this is going to work. We'll see, obviously, but some members did express concern that the escalation reserve may not be enough. In their own businesses, they've experienced some significant inflation and market adjustments in this last 12 months, and certainly I've observed that too. This is not to say we're critical of the original reserve amount, which we were concerned about certainly at the outset, but there was rationale for that, and it was you can never have the exact right amount. So we're not being critical of that. We're just concerned about it going forward. Since our meeting, your board has approved other sources of funding for the quote additional criteria. We've got to find a better term for that, by the way. With the hope, as I understand it at least, the hope that that will be able to be paid back by savings within the bond program, and the bond premium is kind of the prime candidate. And we certainly hope that happens. We do, though, have some concern that if that does not happen, we're going to be right back in this battle between high schools and the IP work. There's nothing to be done about that at this point, but we don't think that that battle has gone away necessarily. Schedule on the high schools, obviously both were behind, as you know, for a number of reasons. Franklin has certainly made progress. We're looking forward to hearing the progress that Roosevelt is making. We've not had that report yet, but we expect and have been assured that that will be forthcoming, so the end date doesn't change. On communication, subsequent to our meeting, I think a very useful section has been added to the bond website area, frequently asked questions, and as I understand it, that will be updated regularly. And I think I hope that will be very helpful. It's certainly an attempt at greater transparency. Generally, I think it's been a good quarter for the bond program. We, especially on the high schools, we're really pleased that now that all the base decisions have been made, that the expert teams, and they really are pretty impressive teams, can go to work and reach the objectives that you've set for them. Steve, here.
I guess Steve March on the committee, and I'd maybe sum it up to say that the Bond Accountability Committee is cautiously optimistic at this point. There's always some risks going forward. The risks probably could be in the term of a strong economic rebound, which causes cost pressures and contractor pressures. While we kept the amount of reserves stable, the expanded amount of the project means there's a smaller percentage available for reserves. So again, it's where we kind of remain a little cautious about that IP work that's been promised versus the expanded scope. So,
Questions from board members? Bobby?
So thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to first just fill in the community in terms of some of the acronyms that we throw around. So IP stands for our improvement projects. Those are our summer improvement projects. So when we refer to IP15, that's the projects that we plan to do in the summer of 2015. And OSM is our Office of School Modernization. And then you threw in a new one this time, which was
The insurance program.
the insurance program, and I want to read exactly. OSIP is the owner-controlled insurance program. So if people are trying to understand some of the jargon we use, and all of us do it. So it sounds to me like you continue to have concern about some of the funds that we set aside for additional classroom space in particular in larger buildings. Do you, and I think that many of us share that concern, do you know when we'll have a better sense of whether we're going to be able to use the bond proceeds to cover that?
The financial staff would be better equipped to answer that question, but my understanding
Is it the spring
is
of
that
next year?
Spring, I think it's next spring.
yeah, our understanding is after the next bond sale.
Okay.
So I think there were going to be 3 bond sales, so after the next one, people might be more comfortable in releasing some
Well, I will
funds.
look forward to your report at that time then.
And actually, we have David wanting to add a little bit more to that
Okay.
question, so I'm going to ask you to come on up and over your shoulder.
So Kevin's partly right. There's really 3 things that we will get better intelligence about as time unfolds. The growth in assessed value, so the basic property tax collections that we can get. We've had 1 year so far. With every passing year, we get we'll be better off in terms of understanding what our situation is. The collection rate on those taxes. Thank you. The collection rate on those taxes, and then the third thing is, as Kevin says, our experience with subsequent bond sales. So those 3 factors, and our next bond sale will probably be in the spring of 2015.
And we'll know pretty quickly then.
And we'll know, in 2015, we'll know exactly what we get at that point, and we'll have, November of this year, we'll have another year of property tax collections, so that'll help.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Kevin and Steve, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for your service on the committee. Okay, to move on to our next agenda item, that would be a similar topic, quarterly report from the Office of School Modernization. Superintendent Smith?
Yes, Jim Owens, who is our Executive Director of the Office of School Modernization, will do this report.
Oh, here comes Jeannie.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Smith, and good evening, school board. I'd like to begin this evening by saying thank you to our Bond Accountability Committee. We, staff, have been very, very appreciative of the insights that they've been able to provide on the program, and in working with us over some of the complexities and some of the nuances around the program and around the projects with their background and experience. I think it's really paid dividends to the district overall, both in terms of the transparency as well as some of the perspectives that they brought to the table. And it's been a great opportunity for OSM staff and really the entire district team to be able to have the conversation and to be able to meet regularly with them on a number of topics. We don't just meet quarterly. We actually meet when specific issues come up, and they're very gracious to spend their time with us, and they all have day jobs, and the opportunity to meet and to review some of these topics, again, some of which are rather quite complicated, is really great, I think, and certainly we're looking forward to continuing that. In your board packages, you received, as you do every month, the balanced scorecard update. The one that you have before you now is for the month of August. And again, I would emphasize that each month, as we as we prepare the information, it's intended to showcase what's changing, what specific concerns staff has around different projects or program issues. And it's really intended to be really an instrument that allows us to highlight the different perspectives of the program. Of course, it's about far more than just budget. We also look at the schedules, we look at stakeholder involvement, and we look at our equity perspective. And it's designed in a way to really promote understanding, and I hope it's a good tool and one that we'll continue to use during our quarterly updates, but also as you have questions or as other issues surface, we're always happy to respond to that. So for the month of August, and you've heard previously tonight that there's a lot of really good things going on in the program, and we're certainly proud of what's been accomplished, not just the work that is occurring this summer, which we're very confident about, but also about a lot of other progress that's been made on many different fronts. We've had an opportunity to continue to show that overall we're in the green, if you will, and that indicates the overall perspective on the program. But also the program remains on budget, on time, and visible to the community. And those are three tenets that we continue to repeat in a variety of forums to highlight the program. Certainly, there's an expectation that that continues as we move forward, and staff and so many are really committed to that, making sure that that continues every month. However, with a program of this size and complexity, there's always challenges that we face, and as we go through the 8-year program, and as a reminder, we're still in year 2, that we're learning quite a bit and we're applying those lessons to deliver the work more effectively, ultimately resulting in facilities that support teaching and learning activities, which of course is why we're doing this work in the first place. Tonight we're, in addition to the update, we also would like to highlight some of the work that we've done during student engagement, and we have a short video that our community involvement and public affairs staff have put together, which really will highlight some of the work that students have done with our bond team. The interns have worked across the district, but in particular the bond work has been really good and an opportunity for the students to see the design and construction industry, in many cases for the first time. And we have several here that we'll be introducing here shortly. Also pleased, I failed to mention that to my left is Jeannie Yurkovich, who's joining me tonight, who's our senior manager for career development and career technical education. And Jeannie has been very key in helping us establish a lot of the student engagement protocols, which again is part of our equity perspective. And so she'll be speaking as well about some of the work that was done this summer. So in terms of overall program status, again, I would echo the Bond Accountability Committee's assessment. I think that as we look at the work that's been accomplished, certainly highlighting the IP or Improvement Project 2014, we took on twice as many schools as last summer, and all 12 of the schools are actually being worked on as we speak, and we have another week and a half to get to substantial completion stage and to be ready for students on the 2nd of September. And so we're very confident that that will be accomplished. I was very pleased that Superintendent Smith was able to join for a tour of 3 of the schools today, and I think it really conveyed a sense of the amount of activity that's going on these sites while kids are away. And as the administrators and the teachers come back, I think we're going to see some really significant improvements at these schools. IP 2014 is very much on budget as well. In fact, I would say at this stage we're doing considerably better than what I expected relative to the change order rates, relative to the costs to respond to differing site conditions, aero emissions, and the like. We're actually doing quite a bit better. In fact, significantly better than last summer. So really pleased to see that. We also, again, applied the lessons from the previous summer. We've got a lot of really strong contractors and design professionals and a great partnership with our program management, construction management partner here, International. And by putting additional staff on the projects, I think it's made a real difference. So again, more lessons for us. On the high school front, you've heard a couple of remarks tonight about the continuation or the moving further into the design development phase for both Franklin and Roosevelt. Both of those teams are working very hard to get us to the next stage, which is to complete their design development and to get us to the point where we can establish our construction budgets or our guaranteed maximum price. We're planning to have those in place before the end of the calendar year because, believe it or not, construction needs to start at both of those schools late next spring. It's hard to believe they're moving like that, but they really are, and this is a very iterative sequence process, and so all of this work is vitally important to get us to that stage so that we're able to complete the construction in time to have those schools ready for students in the fall of 2017. So pleased that we're seeing that. I'm happy to point out tonight that the makeup schedule that we've been referring to for the high schools, in the case of Franklin, has been reconciled. The design project team have concluded that they're back up on schedule. And so on the balanced scorecard, we'll be reflecting that as a green cell as we complete design development phase. And so they're very much on track and moving ahead. In the case of Roosevelt, we've got some pretty unique challenges there. A big one is the phasing plan, how we're going to do the work with the students there at the school. We initially, when the bond was built, were expecting to have about 800 students there. There's now over 1,000. So being able to phase the work will require bringing in some relocatable portable facilities. It'll involve a number of site configuration challenges, and the contractor will have to work around that to minimize disruption to the teaching and learning activities. So again, we're very confident there, but it's going to take us a little bit longer to reconcile that schedule and to get that makeup plan such that we have the confidence there to be able to move forward with it. And then lastly, the Fabian replacement project is one that continues to command a lot of excitement in the community, and the partnership with Concordia is really going to result in a really enhanced facility there, both in terms of the district's K-12 programs as well as Concordia's College of Education. We are on a planned hold. Sounds like the old space program, but our countdown was moving ahead. We had our design team take us through half of the schematic design and pause while Concordia completes or continues on with their fundraising program. Concordia, as you know, is contributing a significant amount to the project, and the way the master plan and the schematics are currently developed, it's a fully integrated project. So there aren't any severable pieces, if you will, that you can break off that are Concordia's or this is the district's. And that's important to recognize because I think as we go forward, we really want to continue to manage this as a single project undertaking. And again, the schedule that we're on is still aligned with the fall of 2017, just like the two high schools. So there's some of the primary areas that I wanted to highlight. I'd like to next move into our equity perspective because I think it's important to continue to demonstrate the efforts and the progress that's being made here. Recall that our equity in public purchasing and contracting policy is the primary driving document that we are implementing as part of the bond program, and that there are three divisions to the equity in public purchasing and contracting that relate to our MWESB firm participation, our workforce equity, and our student engagement. And each of them are, have their own features. And in the balanced scorecard, we've attempted to lay out the performance measures, and we're looking at how we're progressing. In terms of the MWSB participation, and that's minority, women-owned, emerging small business-owned firms, we're still steady at approximately 11% against our aspirational goal of 18%. And again, we've talked previously here about why we're at 11%, but it's really a reflection of the business community, of the construction industry here when you're doing hard bid work. As we move into the CMGC contracts with our 2 high schools, we certainly expect to see that change to actually improve. So we'll monitor that closely. I also wanted to highlight how much we've actually paid out on invoices to these firms, and it's actually in excess of $2 million. So that's a pretty big number, and when you look at PPS as a business enterprise, if you will, that's pretty significant, and it is impacting the community. The second area on contractor workforce equity, we have the partnership with the City of Portland to help measure how our construction contractors are providing apprenticeable trades, or apprentices, if you will, on their projects. And we established a 20% objective, and that's a measure of the number of apprentice hours worked divided by the total number of hours worked. And the city is actually out on our job sites working with our teams and are measuring. We just got our first preliminary report from them about 2 weeks ago, and we're actually exceeding the 20% objective. And this is another really important component because it reflects the commitment that we're making to workers of color and women. We're measuring different characteristics of the contractor teams. And so our initial indication is we're doing really well here, and we'll be getting monthly reports from the city that I'll be rolling into the balanced scorecard. And then finally, our student engagement component. Again, as it relates to our contractors and consultants, this is where we include their participation in engagement with our students in a number of different areas. This is a summary sheet that you've seen before that we're using to showcase the trend, and this is the cumulative summary. The student career experiences is a reflection of how many students have been impacted by the bond work, and it's a culmination of different types of engagements. Career learning opportunities that are presented, the number of firms that are participating in it, and the hours that they're actually contributing with students, whether it's under intern relationships, whether it's job shadowing, whether it's presentations in the classroom. But we really had contractors step up and are providing this engagement with our students. This time I'd like to tee up the short video that I had mentioned earlier, which will highlight some of the activities that we've had with the interns this summer.
The Summer Works internship program is an opportunity for students, primarily low-income students, to learn about careers, to learn about work readiness skills, and have a paid job during the summer. This is an opportunity for kids to have the whole experience, from the work readiness training, learning about resume writing, doing mock interviews, and being placed in positions and having to learn to work with people as a team member. It's a real job, and they've had to do real work.
So as you know, the board recently approved the purchase of Chromebooks for all of our teachers throughout the district. So we've been fortunate enough to have these folks here configuring all of these Chromebooks for our teachers. They're learning to be on time, they're learning to be in communication with the supervisor. You know, we've got a few of them that have really taken on leadership roles and are leading their own team now. So it's been a really positive experience.
For many kids, their first job is working at a fast food restaurant or doing yard work. This is kind of a first job where they're in a professional environment and getting to learn valuable skills that they can take with them regardless of what they do after they graduate.
Right now I'm interning in the mail room. Basically I take mail that's incoming from BESC, or we take pony mail and we sort it and then we meter it. It's a great resume builder. I mean, if you've never had a job, you don't really know how to go about getting a job, this is a good way to start you off. It gives you experience.
So we have 25 students involved in our Summer Works internship program here at BESC. Beyond that, there are about 200 students who have been placed in jobs around the city of Portland and throughout Multnomah County.
I was really impressed after the first time we sat down, kind of the first time card to fill out. I said, do you like what you're doing? She's like, I'm having so much fun.
I think it's offering them an opportunity they might not otherwise have. It's not always easy finding a job, and getting your first one can be difficult. So having this, on your resume and this experience under your belt already can give you that edge moving forward.
I'm excited about how this is all played out. We've never had paid interns here in Portland Public. So this is really a great start to a program that I hope will continue on, and that every summer we have more students and more opportunities available.
Because of the networking we were allowed to do with us, so different departments will send emails asking if we have any available interns and that kind of thing. So we go do projects for them, and then we just talk and get to know each other, and then magic happens, and I got job offers.
Intern update.
So first I want to introduce you to four of our interns who are here. There's Max, who's working at Huey. Max is from Mount Scott.
Where's
Max, there we go. And DeMarcus is a bond communications intern, and DeMarcus is from Grant. And Veronica is working in maintenance, musical instrument repair. And Fenice is a Wilson grad and also working in the Bonds Communications Department. So they are doing a phenomenal job, and they're here to represent all of the students who are working with us this summer. And I appreciate you taking the time to come down here and participate tonight. So if you want to do the next. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what's happening here this summer. So on the left-hand side, these are interns that are related to the bond. So you can see that we have students in bond communications working in the bond program. I'm looking at nutritional services, and I know that's not part of the bond, so a little error there. Huey International, O Planning, and Bora Architects. And then you can see that we also have the rest of our other departments as part of the internship program, and I want to acknowledge Tony Magliano at this point, because those other internship opportunities came about because Tony happened to be in a meeting with us talking about it, and he said, well, we could do that. And so all of a sudden there were more experiences available for our students. And the next slide. This just is a slide to show that we have participation across the district. So I can see that it's a little hard to read, but every one of our high schools has an intern participating this summer in the bond or otherwise, or out throughout the city through the Summer Works program. And we also have students from our multiple pathways programs participating. So it's exciting that we have this many students involved in paid internship opportunities. I want to tell you a little bit about what Summer Works provides for us. All of our students have to go through work readiness training to even be considered to be part of Summer Works internships. They provide job clubs, and they will do a reverse networking fair, all of these things to prepare our students for their next job. For PPS and our mentors, they provided supervisor training, mentor training. They are the point of contact if there is an issue or a question or a problem, and they are the employer of record and at a cost of $2,000 per student. And students are being paid minimum wage, which is just about the $2,000 for the summer. In addition to that, we did some things in Portland Public. So we did a welcome to PPS orientation, and Superintendent Smith was part of that. We've toured the students through the BESC and all of the different parts of the building and the different departments. They've had cross-training opportunities to work with other departments, and the communication interns have also put together a student blog, which we can make that link available to you, and there's a little bio about each of the interns. For the mentors, and I want to acknowledge Kim Fox Middleton and Jan Osborne, weekly updates, ideas to help them engage the interns. And so the idea is to provide this wraparound service so that our students are totally engaged and our mentors are comfortable with what's going on as well. I want to also acknowledge Summer Works and our partners from Work Systems, because they are helping us put this together, and that would be Heather Ficht, excuse me, Barb Timper, and Reese Lord. We have 15 mentors here at the BESC who have done an amazing job. Kim Fox Middleton and David Main from Communications, Jan Osborne from the Office of School Modernization, and lastly the career coordinators, because they are the ones who went out and recruited these students to be part of this. So it's really exciting. The last thing I'll say is that some of the students who are participating on the bond side, their salaries are paid through the grants that we receive, so the CTE Revitalization Grant and the Benson STEM CTE Grant. So we've been able to tie all of those pieces together as well. So with that.
Okay. This time I'd like to invite any questions that the board may have about the update, including any questions you may have for our interns that are here tonight.
So I think the first thing I'd like to do is ask the 4 students to come up and take some questions from the board. Okay. I particularly would like to hear what you think the best part of this experience is. So.
Did you know you were going to be asked questions?
There'll be a test after this. You could just remind us of your name before you go ahead, and the Grant General, he could start.
My name is DeMarcus Carlisle. I recently graduated from Grant High School.
Veronica, I go to De La Salle.
Phineas Dosu, graduated from Wilson High School.
Max Van Donsel, I graduated from Mount Scott Learning Center.
Okay. So if you could tell us what you think has been the best part about this experience, what you've learned, or what's the best part?
I feel like the best part of this experience would have to be, my position I'm in right now. So I'm a community outreach, and I love the position. And just, interacting with other kids and telling people about the bond outside and stuff like that. I love it. So.
I work at a musical repair shop, and I would say the best experience would be doing something you've never done before and just getting those skills and just working somewhere you would never think you would.
I work at community outreach. The best part of the job is I got a chance to meet with new people, how to communicate with people, mostly.
You're going to have to get close to that microphone. There you go.
I worked under Huey International, and the best part about that experience was getting an insider look into the career field that I plan on entering and getting my degree in.
Great. Other questions, board members?
I have a quick comment, not a question, but a comment. But it's really nice to hear that you feel that there's a value to this, and whether it's a sort of a career path or it's an opportunity to try something different that you wouldn't necessarily have. I know the organization I work for, we've had student interns over the last several years, and it has been equally important and rewarding for the professionals in the offices who get an opportunity to engage youth in ways different than what they normally get to. And at the end of the day, at the end of the summer, actually, you begin to see almost a transformation of a willingness and interest, a professionalism. And it's an exciting thing to see. So congratulations on the opportunity to take advantage of this, and good job actually taking advantage of it, because a lot of students still don't. So.
I just thank you for being here tonight. In addition to your service and work this summer, it makes a huge difference for us to see to hear from the students and to see you, not just to hear as numbers on a page. That's important too, but to have you here is really important. So I appreciate you taking your evening to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm curious if you have ideas for us on how to do outreach to other students next year and to tell them about the experience that you've had. How did you learn about the program?
Okay, you two community outreach people.
Well, we learned about this through the Summer Works, and I'm pretty sure everybody who said, we would jump on this, we said, we'll take it. That's basically what we said, and yeah, I'm glad. Personally, I'm glad that I decided to do this.
I would say continue what you guys do. This is a great way to outreach to other people, and it's working.
Anybody else? Anybody up here? Right. Well, once again, thank you all for taking the time out this evening. We know you don't have to be here. We really appreciate it, and thank you very much for your service to the district. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Questions for Jim and Jeannie? Okay. Jim and Jeannie, you're back up.
We had two people speak tonight on the Roosevelt CTE, putting them together. I've gotten innumerable emails about that. I just wondered where we are in terms of that. Are we just saying, they don't know what they're talking about? They keep talking about, well, we'll bring in experts and stuff. Is that our approach to them, or is our approach, yeah, they've got a good idea, we're trying to see how we can do this? What is our approach from the CTE and the STEM office, which I guess that's you, Ms.
So I'm going to defer that. It's part of the Office of Teaching and Learning, Office of Schools, and though I'm part of the conversation, I'm not the point on the conversation, and so I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone. I think there are other people that probably could answer that. I'm sorry, but be more in tune with what's going on than I am.
So, but you're not, so you're really not taking a leadership role in that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
I guess I would comment, Director Buell, that the integration of the work at Roosevelt in terms of the facility obviously depends upon the program development piece, and that component is being developed through our Office of Schools and people who are looking at how the spaces will be utilized. And of course, from the construction standpoint, the spaces will need to support that. So that is a work in progress.
So what's the deadline for deciding whether to put those two spaces together?
So in terms of the facility solution for that, we're already executing the split makerspace, STEM space.
So basically we're saying those people don't know what they're talking about?
Well, I think we're saying we disagree in terms of having two spaces or one space, that we believe, based on a whole body of information, that the two makerspace configurations is workable. There's examples in many districts across the country that do that, and that the expertise that's coming in is really looking at the programmatic aspects of how those spaces will be used, but the design aspect that's in the Roosevelt project right now is proceeding ahead with separate spaces.
So we've looked around the country and found out that there's places that have them split and they like them split, and they said that was a good idea. Could you send me maybe 5 of those with the names of the people who are up, so I could call and see if
We actually
or
have
accurately.
a pretty good list of
Yeah,
school
okay.
districts that have used that, and so.
And that, and they
we'll
like
send
it,
that.
and I could get
Okay.
the names of the people so I could make a phone call and say,
Okay.
hey, do you like this? Having it separate would have been better together. What you're saying is that if I called them, they're going to say, we like it better separate than together.
I'm not sure how they would characterize their response to you, but they certainly would be able to share their experience in having the split spaces and how they're using them.
But that wasn't really my question. My question was, is it better to have them, are we saying it's better to have them apart than to have them together? And if that's the case, then when I called those places where they were apart, they should say, yes, it's better to have them apart than together. If I said, would you rather they were all together and STEM was all in one spot? They would say, no, we'd rather they were split into two. Is that what you're saying? Because you referenced these other places
Right.
where there's other places where it takes place,
Right.
but it can be taking place, and they may be lamenting today, you know, it would have been great to have those together.
And perhaps.
So really, the fact that there were other places doesn't have anything to do. We're just saying those people don't know what they're talking about, and we're saying it's better to have them apart. Is that
In terms
correct?
of the constraints at the Roosevelt site.
Okay,
and
in
the way
terms
the
of
overall-
everything, as it
in
all
terms of
goes
all
together,
considerations.
better
Correct.
apart, and
Right.
the main constraints are?
So the constraints of the design in terms of being able to accommodate the student capacities, the adjacency requirements that are outlined in our educational specification for comprehensive high schools, taking everything into account, the expertise among our design professionals, led by Bisetti architects. It is the optimal solution for us to move forward. And so as we interface with our Office of Schools in terms of how they're using the spaces, they are working a plan to do it out of the two separate spaces.
And we do have a STEM expert a STEM expert who's taking leadership and saying, this is a better idea? Or do we have somebody I'll put down there and I can talk to them?
Okay, getting a little over my skis here, but we have an approach that will be led by educators who will be looking at expertise from the community and from a variety of sources who will come and help with that body of work.
So we're not really using any STEM experts, because the people who spoke tonight, one of the things that they keep talking about is, we've got STEM experts who would tell you this stuff needs to be together. We're sending in STEM, ask these experts, they'll all tell you that. So if that's, we should have STEM experts that are telling us that they don't need to be together? And those would be, who would I call to talk to about that?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, that'd be great if you would. I really
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you for answering my question. I know I'm kind of pushing on you, but at the same time, there's a lot of people pushing on this.
I understand.
And
Absolutely.
I think we need to make sure we're on the right track, and I don't necessarily hear the answers that I'm
Right.
looking for,
Okay.
but I
Well, thank you for that
appreciate you
question.
being open with me. I appreciate that.
Director Buell, I'd like to provide a little bit further clarification. CJ Sylvester, the Chief of School Modernization. You had talked about the combined STEM space versus separate space as either one being better than the other. And in
Right, that's
fact,
exactly right.
that's not what the experiences at other school districts have told us. In other words, having them separated or having different career technical education strands in different locations in the building is not better or worse than having them all in a single location. So it's not the binary
Two choices.
choice
It's
that you were
more
characterizing,
complicated
that
than
one
that.
is
Okay.
better than the other. It's simply that both of them are viable design options and characteristics. One of them worked well at the Franklin site for us, and the other one worked well for us at the Roosevelt site because of the unique site characteristics.
And what schools would I call to talk to them about this, to verify that?
And that's the list that Jim said he's gotten.
And
I
Jim's
think he
going to
did.
send me that list of who would tell me, and they'll say, it doesn't make any difference, is what you're saying, is that correct?
Well, if you're calling a school, for instance, that has the site, that has the STEM in a variety of locations throughout the school, they will tell you how well that is working for them. If you call a school that has the STEM in a single location, they will tell you how that is working for them. They won't, again, go into the binary about whether they think, well, maybe they will. But again.
That's what we'll find out, I guess.
People like what
Thank
they
you.
have, right.
Thank you for that information.
And while, I guess I would say, while we continue to listen to the community about this. We already voted on this quite some time ago with schematic design, and we're moving forward with where we are right now.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from, did you have a question, Bobby?
During the actual bond campaign, I had spoken with the Portland Police Bureau and fire to a certain extent, and made a commitment that we would run the design specifications past them. I've been told that that is happening or has happened. I just want to verify that again, and I'd be curious to hear whether they had any specific changes or recommendations, or whether you're still in the process.
We're still in the process. We recently posted on our website the construction design guidelines, which I think is what you were asking, not about our ed spec. Because they're different documents, but they're related.
I just don't know at what stage the police and fire bureaus in Portland are going to have a chance to look at these designs and comment when there's still time to make changes.
What I can say is that the Fire Bureau is part of the permitting process as opposed to the Police Bureau, so they actually interface with the documents and our designs at different times. And with the Police Bureau, what we talked about is using the characteristics of community through environmental design. There's actually an acronym that I need to think about what the
CPTED?
CPTED, yes. Community
protection through environmental design?
I don't think it's protection, but it's through environmental design. And so there's a whole series of security-related design characteristics that are part of the design process as we move forward. And we are working very closely with our own security department, who then acts as our interface with the Police Bureau.
So things like how you design it so that you don't have places for people to hide.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's
Safe
both
and
internal
lines of sight.
to the building and external to the building, and it's regarding relationships of spaces to each other internal to the building, as well as even things like landscaping on the external of the building.
And I'm not sure exactly what you're asking in
So
terms of
here's-
the involvement, but
here's
the
my
cities
question.
are all involved with
In
the process.
2016, when we go out for our next bond, and I go to the police union and ask them for their endorsement or support, are they going to say that they had a great experience with Portland Public Schools and that we ran the design past them? And if the answer is yes, I'm happy, and if the answer is no, I'd appreciate that it happened.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any others?
I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter. I just want it to happen, so, thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, moving on to the next part of our agenda is the corrective action plan. The board voted on this plan at their June 23rd meeting. Tonight, we're going to receive an update on the plan. Superintendent Smith, would you like to introduce this? Let's see.
Yes, and Amanda Whalen, Chief of Staff, will present the update on the plan.
And thank you again to all the students as they're leaving us.
So, good evening, board members. Tonight, I'm here to provide you with an update on our audit process. In June, you approved our corrective action plan, and as part of the order from the state, we're in the process of developing an audit process with the Parents Coalition that will be submitted to the Oregon Department of Education by August 15th. We have had 3 meetings with the Parents Coalition in the last few weeks that were facilitated by Cindy Hunt from the Oregon Department of Education. The audit process will focus on the 2 findings from Deputy Director Saxton's order and our corrective action plan. First, meeting the 130 course hour requirement for high schools, and second, developing a compliant complaint policy. While this document is not yet finalized, I wanted to provide you with some of the information about what we are considering as part of the audit process and that we will be finalizing in the next few days. For the 130-hour requirement, we are developing trackers that the high schools will use to monitor course hours and identify any changes that need to be made to ensure that all courses are in compliance. This information will be posted on a website for easy viewing. Additionally, we will be identifying an independent auditor to monitor school hours on a monthly basis. For the complaint policy, staff is in the process of circulating a draft policy and administrative directive for feedback. We will then make revisions and bring back to the board for a work session on September 9th. Any changes from that work session will then be incorporated into the draft that is presented to the board on September 23rd for first reading. As with all policies, this policy will be posted to our website for comment for at least 28 days before the board votes on the final policy. For the audit, we will be looking at a number of different measures for the effectiveness of the complaint policy and its user-friendliness. Also, per our finding, our policy will need to identify when a complainant could appeal to the state. Once we have an agreed-upon audit document, I will provide it to the board. We will also provide you with periodic updates from the audit over the course of the year. I wanted to take a moment to also thank the Parents Coalition and the Oregon Department of Education for their work on this process. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Buell, you have a question?
What was the August 15th date again?
So we need to provide the Oregon Department of Education with an agreed-upon audit process.
Or just the audit process? So when are we going to have the finalization of what we're doing around the hours? We already have that? Is that
So we have
voted on? I mean, I don't know.
So we have a schedule in place that we that is going to be in place at all of the high schools that meets the 130 course hour requirements.
And the 990, we met all those two?
So that was the finding that we were not found to be out of compliance on the 990.
And this is the first day of school? In other
Se-
words, one of
September.
the things we've talked about along is that we are going to allow every student, we're going to demand that every student take an 8-period day unless they have a signed note from their parents, and that we're all set up to do that. That's my understanding. In terms of at least by October 1st, but by October 1st it seems kind of late to do that. Are we going, the first day of school, if I'm a student in any of our major high schools, let's call, I don't know, they're dividing them up some way, I can't get it straight. In any of our high schools, the first day you walk in, you can take 8 hours. In fact, you're going to be assigned to an 8-period day unless you have a signed form from your parent. You're assigned to that. Now, somebody was talking about 17% are only signed up on that of freshmen at Lincoln. So 83% have a note from their parents saying they don't have to take all those classes. Sounds a little, I don't know, it sounds a little off to me.
So let me start with a different, by saying that the issue of students taking 8 periods is not part of the audit process, right? So the 130 course hour requirement is about the actual length of the courses and meeting the 130 course hours over the course of the year for each course. So that's a separate issue.
Well, in a way it's separate, but in a way it's the same in that if a kid walks in the first day and can't take 8 classes, then he's obviously or she's obviously not meeting the 130-hour requirement in the class. She's getting a 0-hour requirement. She's getting 0 hours, and if they wait in order to get the class until September 1st, then they're not meeting 130 hours either because, that's what it seems like to me. Where am I wrong?
So the 130 course hour is based on the number of hours of the courses offered. It doesn't so students who are absent for a day and sick obviously wouldn't wouldn't necessarily be there for every hour of the course. So that's the first part. So the second part of this is the issue of the forecasting. So as we have talked about before, students were given forecast forms in the spring where they were asked to forecast for 8 classes and had to have a parent signature if they were not going to forecast for 8. And that has been the case all along. When we provided the early forecast information to the Parents Coalition, we did so with the caveat that really those are numbers in flux. So we've had, and we've said the forecast data is not really the data that we are looking at as we, for the number of classes students actually land in. That is the data that we have come October 1 that we've provided in November for the last 2 years. So really these are two different topics.
Well, if a kid,
So, I guess one point too is that September 1st is not, you go in and you may have forecasts of different things, you may change classes, you may add, you may drop. My experience with high school is that you're not set in stone on September 1st and you're still, and so staff is working really hard here and at all the school sites to figure all that out and to provide the courses and to get everything in line. So I guess my question was just to make sure I'm clarifying, I'm understanding what you're working on in terms of the corrective action plan and the audit is specifically the 130 course hours and the complaint policy and arriving at a complaint policy that is deemed acceptable and effective and a good improvement.
Yes.
That's the two things that you're working on.
Those are the two audit issues, yes.
And so I guess I'm hearing, I'm seeing sort of multiple additional issues and requests being brought up around this. So I guess, a question around, we have the limit, what the actual scope is the 130 course hours and the complaint policy. And knowing that you are trying to get everyone scheduled and all of the high schools up and running, just a concern about are there, these additional requests, and what time is that taking for staff versus the time we need to make sure that we have everything ready for kids coming into school?
So I would say that our high school principals are working really hard right now to create schedules where students can take all the classes that they, the number of classes that they have requested. We've been, and so we are really still in the process of that. We've been working with Synergy this year for the first time, but principals are in the process of creating master schedules, identifying any additional staff needs that they may have, looking at their enrollment numbers and all, and we have counselors coming back in a couple weeks, and they're going to continue to work with families and with students to continue to identify what the best classes are for students and make sure that we're able to offer our students that opportunity.
So I have two questions. The one is in terms of the complaint and the draft policy on parent complaint. First of all, I'm incredibly grateful that we are working on this. It should be a user-friendly process, and I know we have an ombudsman in place now. When are we going to see is September 9th really the first time we're going to get a pretty substantial look at this, or are you going to have some board engagement or involvement as you go?
So we've provided you with a draft already, and so September.
I haven't been asked to give comments. Are we supposed to be getting those to you at this point?
So you could. So what we have been really doing is trying to work with community partners and other members of the community to get feedback at this point. September 9th is the meeting where we're going to come to you. It will not be at all a final draft, and it would be the moment for this, doing a deep dive at a work session, really where you have the opportunity to provide feedback and really look at the complaint policy and make sure that you believe it meets those needs.
Okay. And I understand that the 990 isn't part of the actual complaint. But it was part of the complaint. It's not part of the audit process. So I just want to be, so sorry. It's really confusing. So I just want to make sure we're tight on our language. I get that in terms of this, we're looking at the complaint in the 130. As we're looking at 990, I have been told that we have the possibility of releasing staff out to schools in August or in October. Obviously, August would be preferred. So what is the information that we need in order to release staff, and do we have any idea of how many staff we would release at this point? So if you want to do this at the next board meeting, that's fine with me, so that it's a separate discussion, but it is a real discussion and a real concern to parents.
So senior directors are right now working with all of their principals. So the principals have been back in the buildings now for, depending on the principal, a week and a half, and really looking at their schedules and finalizing that. As I said, we have counselors coming back soon here in order to do that as well. And really the building of the master schedule is a process that's happening right now. And we're looking at, by name teachers, classes that they're being assigned, number of students that have forecasted for those classes, and really going through and trying, by school, by name, really trying to figure out what the needs are going to be. We have said that if we are able to identify, a need to release FTE in August, that we will do so. Normally what we've done, as you know, is there's a ton of shift that happens. We have students who enrolled in April who wound up going to different schools, and really there's a bunch of shifting. So really some of this is how do we sift through based on past experience and figure out who we're expecting, who we're not, clarifying who's going to be there. So we're really in the process of still doing that. So we're continuing to have discussions with high school principals and the senior directors around that.
Another question, Dr. Buell.
Let me go back and ask the follow-up question to what I was talking about. So if I'm going into our schools the first day of school, I will find that every kid who doesn't have a signed form from their parent has a full 8-period schedule. Is that correct? In other words, suppose a kid said, I want to take art, and then we can't get that kid into art. So now he only has, or she only has 7 periods covered. We're one short. Do we say, hey kid, you're taking Spanish? Or hey kid, you're taking such and such because we can't get you your elective, so we're giving you this one, and therefore you have a full school day. Is that what I'm going to find if I go walk out in the schools? Or am I going to find that actually we don't have a full school day for every kid, which is the opposite of what I think we keep talking about that we do have?
So my understanding is that on the forecasting form, students listed alternatives. So if they were not able to fit them into their first round of courses, then what we'd be doing is looking at some of the alternatives they listed. If that doesn't fit into their schedule, we would be having counselors work with those families to see if there's an 8th class that the student was interested in taking that fit within their schedule. And that's the commitment that we've made. And my hope is that we will not be making as many of those conversations after the first day of school, but there will be a possibility based on who shows up for courses, whether there are things that wind up opening. My understanding is at the high school level, this is often in those first couple of weeks. There's sort of we expected 40 kids in this journalism class and only 30 are coming, so, what can we do there? We expected 30 in here and 20 are coming. There's room in here for other additional students and making that opportunity available.
And I'm not trying to suggest this is not incredibly difficult and complex. I believe that it is. I just want us to be honest, not honest is the wrong word. I just want us to be forthright about what actually is happening so I can understand what's actually happening, not what sounds like it's kind of happening or a little bit over here. For instance, is that correct that we have 17% of kids in Lincoln High School who are showing up as freshmen who have notes from their parents who say they don't have to take a full school day?
As I said, I don't know what the forecasting numbers. As I said, we've been very clear. These are not finalized numbers, and they're not something that
Well, but
we
I
would
mean,
be
can
using.
can you opt out of a full school day as a freshman or a sophomore? I mean,
You can.
Why,
So the only
yes.
thing-
let me
why
add-
would we why would we even let kids do that? I'm confused about
So
that.
the only thing I would add to this conversation is that that much of this, how we're doing this year, has emerged from work that we did with the Parents Coalition. And so previously, you had to opt in to your 8th class. Right. What we did this year, and this was largely site-driven, so each school could be doing it differently. What we did, truly, like what the messaging was, came from the individual school. So last year, we actually did this as a more unified message that was with the principals, but the district coordinated it. And this year will be the first year that we're doing what you're describing, which is you sign up for 8 classes unless you have the parent signature to pull you out. But this is our first year of doing it that way. This is an important thing, and that we messaged that in the course guides. We messaged it on the forecasting forms. And there are 3 points where we're doing adding staffing, taking a look at it and figuring out how we add. So we did it in the spring, and we try and do as much of the staffing as we can then, so schools are able to hang on to their existing staff. However, they have what they have in terms of information at that point. We do it again right now in August when staff are coming back and working with students to try and finalize schedules. And then we do it again, as you know, in the fall when people have landed and we know where kids actually are. But part of the art in this last part is that you don't end up you've overstaffed based on what people believe, and then you end up having to take staff away. So we're trying to hit it, and what you've got right now in the forecasting information is the process that's not done. So we can keep doing every day, here's what we know about where we are with forecasting. It's gonna keep not looking done until it's done. So that's the complexity of right now, trying to characterize where are we, is we've got people are in motion working with families right now. But theoretically, what we've set in motion this year is that what you've said is true, that you need to have done the work with your family to say, I'm opting out, as opposed to that I have to come forward and say, hey, I want an 8th class. So it's a very different framework this year that we hope will end up with kids taking maximum amount of classes.
That's district-wide with all our main high schools.
And that is district-wide with all our main high schools, and the communication was unified, so everybody got the same communication, everybody had the same message in their course guides, and this has largely been the work we've done with the Parents Coalition.
This is on all levels. In other words, we allow freshmen to opt out of parts of school?
Our goal is to have particularly freshmen and sophomores taking the 8 classes
But-
or programming themselves for 8 periods. Like, again, it's going to really be different student to student, but that we're working with you to program you for 8 periods.
And I just want to say that while I haven't spoken with Ms. Chapman, the other principals who I spoke to about their forecasting numbers said, especially at the 9th grade, that wasn't reflecting, the way it was showing up in Synergy did not reflect the number of students who had actually forecast for 8 periods.
And I will say,
that was low.
I saw photographs of the
Lincoln.
Lincoln forecasting tables were on every single table where they were working with students to sign up. It said you must sign up for 8 classes. I mean, so like the principals this year have done a real proactive effort in terms of what kids are signing up for. But again, really individual and different where they are school to school. And we're using first round, or we're just at the beginning of using Synergy too, which I know has added some complexity to this. So there you go.
I'll look into this more. Maybe I can have some more questions sometime.
You're
but I don't
welcome to
have
follow
ask
up with
them in
us.
this
Yeah,
forum.
and stay
Thank you.
closely tuned into this.
Thank you, Director Buell, for bringing it up. Director Atkins?
So I just say I appreciate the real hard work that staff is doing to get us to the point where we have, through now till when the final, when schedules are finalized and kids are set. And I'm sure the Parent Coalition appreciates all the work that you're doing as well. I mean, I get that we also have the corrective action plan. They're working on that, so that's really good that we'll get the 130 hours kind of documented and clear, and then we'll have a really new and improved complaint policy, so that's terrific. But I guess, I really hope the focus that staff is allowed to really focus on the intensity that what you're trying to do right now is keep your time and energy focused on getting school set up and getting ready for students. So I appreciate that. And then, when we can look and see, okay, given this complete shift, thanks to this input and help from the Parents Coalition, where are we? How did we do over this entire process? But right now, we're in the midst of you guys are in the midst of the intensity of it. So I'm just looking for you to be able to do that and complete it successfully, and then we can assess and see how we did.
I think I would tag on to that and thank Amanda and Carol both for those, that detailed explanation of all of it. I think it's a really confusing process for people. It's difficult, and it's not over till it's over. And as we know, those numbers flex a lot. I mean, I watched my kids when they were in school, and I know from a teacher's perspective, one of the worst things you could do is be assigned to a school and then not have enough students show up, and then have to go to another school, which would be really horrible when you're doing all that work. So lots and lots of moving parts, and I appreciate the explanations, and I think that helps the public understand what's happening as well. So,
can I add one more
Sure.
comment to this? This year, so we have not said everybody's going to get every exact class that they want. So you're not necessarily going to get your first choice, and you heard we've had asked for what are your alternates. What we should not hear is students asking for another class and being told we can't offer you that. So that's the one we want to hear back about. If you're getting that answer someplace, and you board members may be hearing from me coming back and saying we need to go into reserves to take X dollars in order to add X number of staff in order to meet that demand. So I mean that's part of the that's part of where we are. So so again, you may not get X class that was your first choice and the thing you really want, but if there's room in a class, you may be offered that, and we shouldn't be turning kids down from wanting a class that we then say we can't provide. Okay, of course, period. Yeah.
Director Buell?
Ms. Whalen, if there's somebody in the audience or myself who wants to look at the complaint draft document and wants to send comments or changes that they would suggest, who would they send that to? Would that go to you, or would that go to Mr. Isaacs, or who would that
So
go
that could
to?
either come to me or Judy Martin, who is the ombudsman.
Okay,
Who's
great.
raising her hand in the back of the room?
Okay.
Thank you. And the final date for getting that prior to bringing it to the board would be?
September 3rd.
September 3rd. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Bobby?
So I'm still focused on the 990, and I know, again, it's not part of what we have to do by August 15th. But When will we be able to see more accurate forecasting sheets or information so we have a better sense of how well this is working? Because I've seen lots of different sheets and all of them feel kind of alarming to me. So at some point, will we as a board get that? And would that be relatively soon, I hope?
So we're working with the schools right now, and we have got, like, our system, I mean, part of this is that the system is not caught up, and so really figuring out what do we need, getting those master schedules together. What we have done in the past has been to look on October 1 and see which classes students landed in. So that is what, and so to me, like, in terms of what's going to be the most accurate information in terms of how this actually went, that'll be the day. Now, working with principals and as I said, looking at teachers by name and students, we're trying to figure out where are places where we need to add additional FTE. So so we won't have it in a chart that's going to look like that, but we're going to continue to work with them in terms of trying to provide more information.
And we're confident that in terms of students wanting 8 periods, we will provide the staff to make that happen if we get the request.
That's why I'm saying to you, this year, we should not have students who are saying, I want another class period, and we should be saying, we're looking for, what do we have, where do we have openings, and get you in another class period.
Okay.
If we don't, I'm coming back to you to say, either we're using, first line is that we're using the FTE that we haven't set aside, and again, in 2 waves, August and then October, and there's a balance there of how, like, the principals make it visible to their senior director what they believe they need. They're looking at, again, what are teachers teaching, where do we have teachers with empty periods, and we will be in a dialogue about, okay, can that teacher be teaching something if we've got a teacher who's booked for only 2 periods? What are they doing in the other 3? I mean, we're going to go through a process, and that's what we're looking at right now to make sure we're maximizing what we've got in our staffing in terms of what courses are available to kids. But as we go through that process, then we'll allocate staff that we haven't set aside. And then next stage would be I'm coming back to you and saying we still need X number of staff in order to completely fulfill the requests that we're getting, the need and the demand that we're getting. Okay?
So I also just wanted to say thank you to you, Amanda, in particular, for working with the Parents Coalition, because I know Tom and I sat in on one meeting, and then I sat in on a second meeting with the Parents Coalition. So I definitely appreciate and know that you're doing some really hard work, and I especially want to thank the folks in the Parents Coalition themselves for making this such a visible issue, not just for Portland Public Schools, but for high schools around Oregon who have an 8-period day. This is a significant issue, and we're kind of at the cutting edge of it. And in fact, I think that every other school district in Oregon that has an 8-period day will learn from us. It's unfortunate to be the guinea pig, but we're doing the good work, and I thank the Parents Coalition for helping us with that, so thank you.
And actually, the one other thing I'd add is that both the Parents Coalition and PPS are on a statewide work group looking at this issue that met, I believe, the first time tomorrow. And we'll meet 3 times taking a look at what's this, because this is, like, so the 130, there are numbers of districts that were not meeting 130 who we were in a position to have been able to figure this out in order to have a plan in place to do it starting in September. There were many districts that submitted waivers for the coming year, and ours will be being able to deliver on this, and the tracking mechanism is really asking each school to recalibrate. If you drop below for any reason, you've got to figure out your plan for recalibrating as we go so that we aren't below by the time we hit the end of the year. So
that's great.
But yeah, it's a statewide issue, and we're participating in statewide solution building.
Anything else?
Thanks, Amanda.
Anyone? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Whalen. So let's move on to our business agenda. The board will now consider that. Ms. Houston, are there any changes? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the business agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Director Regan moves and Director Belisle seconds the adoption of the business agenda. Ms. Houston, is there any public comment? Okay. Is there any board discussion on the business agenda? No. Okay. The board will now vote on the business agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed? Didn't hear any. No abstentions. The business agenda is approved by a vote of, we got 6-0. Okay, so the next regular meeting, where's Amanda? What are we looking at? Okay, so the next meeting of the board will be a business meeting of the board, and it will be held on Tuesday, August 19th at noon here in the auditorium. On Tuesday, September 2nd, the board will hold a retreat at 5 o'clock at the YE's conference room here in the BESC. A study session of the board will occur on Tuesday, September 9th here in the auditorium at 6. So thank you very much for everybody who attended, and we are adjourned.